Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this is our Twisted Tuesday true crime story. I know it's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday, so please forgive me, but I'm uploading now. Alright, let's get into the story. August 28th, 2013, Ripley, Ohio. Our scene starts. A bright yellow Jeep sat quietly on the side of Route 68, its engine still warm. The driver, 22-year-old Brittany Stykes, 5 months pregnant with her second child, was slumped behind the wheel, lifeless. And her toddler, 14-month-old Autumn, was strapped in the back in her car seat, bleeding, barely breathing. To this day, no one knows who pulled the trigger. No arrest, no answers, just silence. And the question that everybody had who loved her was, who would want Brittany dead? Why? This is the story of a father's relentless pursuit for justice, and a case so twisted it left an entire town looking over their shoulder. Welcome to another Twisted Tuesdays true crime story. Today's is a little different because it was never solved, which is very sad. But hopefully we can bring a little bit of liveliness to the case again and makes people still ask questions, because we should. Brittany Stykes was never the type to sit still. She was born in 1991 in Brown County, Ohio, the third of 5 children. And she quickly earned the reputation as the spark plug of the family. Her father, David Dodson, and her were very close. He said that she had a way of lighting up the room before she could even talk. She smiled with her whole body, he once told a reporter. Like she knew something beautiful, or saw something beautiful that the rest of us couldn't see. She was adventurous, stubborn in the best of ways, and fiercely loyal to her family. Her younger siblings idolized her, and her mom swore that she could hold a baby and change a tire all in the same day. Her bond with her dad was really something special. David Dodson, her father, he had taught her how to shoot a bow, how to change her oil, and how to keep her heart open, even when the world tried to harden it. So they went on long drives together. They listened to Johnny Cash, talked about dreams, talked about God, talked about everything. She grew up fast, but her heart stayed gentle. After high school, she would enroll in Bible college, and then soon after, she would enroll in a medical school for medical billing and coding. She wasn't exactly sure what she wanted to do yet. She just knew she wanted to do some good in a world full of bad. At 20, she would marry Shane Stykes. He was a quiet, hard-working guy from the area. I think she met him at a Bible kind of camp. Something to do with the church. But soon, they got pregnant, and she had Autumn, and that became the center of Brittany's world. There's pictures showing her holding Autumn in the crook of her arm, cheek to cheek, grinning like nothing else in the world mattered. Nothing. And to Brittany, nothing else did. That was it for her. She was loving being a mother. And she was 5 months pregnant with her second child when she was murdered. So sad. She hadn't even told the family yet. She wanted it to be a surprise, and she had planned she'd break the news to her family on her dad's birthday. She had even wrote on his birthday card, "Happy birthday, Grandpa, again." It's terrible. But that card never got delivered to her father. And David Dodson has been chasing the truth ever since. On August 28, 2013, it was supposed to be a celebration. It was her father's birthday. And she was planning a surprise visit to their house. She stopped at Walmart to buy a card, and the next time her Jeep was seen, it was by a driver who was veering off the side of the road to find out if somebody needed help. It looked like a fender bender at first, until he saw blood. It was around 7 p.m. when he pulled over and called 911. The first responders arrived to a nightmare. Brittany was slumped over the steering wheel with blood everywhere, shot multiple times. Her unborn child was already gone, sadly. In the back seat, little Autumn was still breathing, but barely. She had a bullet wound to the head. This poor little girl. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and police worked the scene, but something felt off. Something wasn't right. There was no signs of robbery, no defensive wounds, no smashed windows, no signs of a struggle. It looked precise and planned. So the time of death was around 7:30 p.m. And the family still had no answers. David Dotson collapsed in his driveway when he got the call that his baby girl and his unborn grandchild were gone, and no one knew why. I can't even fathom how I would feel if something happened to one of my girls. I think I would really lose it in this situation, guys. They had better find the person before I did. That's all I could say. But anyway, detectives from the Brown County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation immediately. At first, their focus was narrow on the husband, of course, Shane Stykes. The couple had been having some problems, marital problems, and friends described their marriage as strained. But Brittney had even moved back in with her parents for a while, but she was now back living at Shane's again, and they were trying to work on the marriage, supposedly. But Shane, he had an alibi. He was at work, and then he had went to the gym. And when the shooting took place, records, police phone records, and surveillance footage showed him being at the gym. So, and his grief appeared to be genuine. Still, police pressed him. Hours of questioning, polygraph tests, media scrutiny, everything, but nothing stuck. He passed the polygraph test, so then they went to Brittany's phone. She had recently been texting someone under the initials of JD in the phone, but when they followed up on that, they traced it to a family friend, and he admitted that they reconnected, but he said that there was no kind of relationship other than just friends right there. So like Shane, he was ruled out. Soon the investigation would balloon, though. It went all over the news, and 70 people were interviewed in the first 3 weeks. Former classmates, former boyfriends, co-workers, even church people that knew her. So the case that started with such urgency was already losing steam. They weren't learning anything. So Ripley, Ohio is the kind of place where you kind of leave your doors unlocked and everybody knows your business. So when the young mother was gunned down in broad daylight like that on a local road, it sent ripples of fear through the entire town, rightly. And rumors spread quickly. Some of Brittany's friends said that she had stumbled onto something, like a drug deal. Others believed she had a stalker. A few even whispered that the murder might have been a case of mistaken identity. I guess there was a road rage incident involving a similar yellow Jeep, and yellow Jeeps aren't that, they're kind of rare. So could it have been someone that mistaked Brittany's Jeep for the Jeep they had encountered the week before, maybe? I don't know. I'm just kind of searching here. But local news stations ran segments for weeks. Flyers were posted at gas stations, storefronts, and even churches. But the tips, they dried up, and leads went cold, unfortunately. Brittany's parents went on television, begging for answers, and David appeared stoic, but his face, you could tell how much pain he was in. And he begged the public. He said, if you know something, anything, please come forward. My baby did not deserve this. No, she did not. And the silence was deafening to him. Nobody knew anything, as they were saying. And the longer it stretched, the more the case slipped from the headlines and into a mystery. Months passed, and strange details began to surface. An anonymous letter was sent to the sheriff's office claiming that Brittany was involved with a married man that had dangerous connections. Police looked into it, though, and found nothing. Investigators followed up, but it was just another dead end. Meanwhile, online forums, they speculated wildly, as they always do. And everyone dissected her every move, analyzing crime scene photos, text messages, comments, posts, everything. Most of it led nowhere, though. But it did stir some doubt. Not about just who killed Brittany, but whether police had botched the case from the start. Frustration mounted, and David Dotson grew more vocal. Somebody knows something, he said. They're just too scared or too guilty to say it. He's probably right. The sheriff's office held a press conference and said they're doing everything they could to solve the case, but they admitted they were no closer to solving the case than the first day that it happened. And through it all, Autumn, her precious, beautiful daughter, healed. Thank God for that. She would learn to walk, then talk, but she would never see her mother again. So sad. As detectives retraced Brittany's steps, they really couldn't find any more information, and no new leads really came forward. at first, and it took a few months. And David started collecting every bit of evidence that he could get, and he became everything, pretty much, for her. He was an investigator, he was an advocate, he was doing whatever he could for his daughter, which is an excellent father. But as detectives retraced her final hours, new and perplexing details began to surface. A day before her murder, Brittney told a close friend that she felt like somebody was following her. Was she being stalked? Her sister Emily had recalled also that she called her late at night and said that she thought she was followed home by a black pickup truck. But she asked her if she got the license plate, and Brittney said, "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," and shook it off. More troubling still, Brittney had reportedly canceled plans with a coworker the week prior, saying she didn't feel safe going out. So why would she not feel safe going out? Was someone stalking her? Don't know. So police reviewed all the security footage from the roads and the storefronts from Route 68, but since it was such a rural area, there was limited footage, and nothing turned up. Then they looked at her phone. In the next 48 hours before her murder, she had texted someone, which she listed in her phone as only T, the letter T, 30 times, and it ended up being untraceable because it was one of those burner phones. But the messages stopped at exactly 7:46 p.m. on the night of the murder. So that coincidence is pretty chilling. And Autumn couldn't offer any details. She was too young. But every time she passed a car, like a yellow Jeep after that, she would say, "Look, there's Mommy's car." It's so extremely sad. Some monster took this little girl's mother from her, and no one deserves that. Nobody. I don't care. And David Dotson, her hero father, made it his mission to find out who killed his daughter and why. What started as a desperate plea for justice quickly evolved into a full-time obsession. He was her advocate, her everything. He carried a binder everywhere with the help of his wife, but it was stuffed with crime scene photos, media clippings, social media posts, police briefings, even hand-drawn maps. He documented every call, every tip, every odd encounter with eerie precision. If you asked him where Brittney was on August 28th at 7:15 p.m., he could tell you not only where her Jeep was, but which direction it was going, and the temperature outside, even the volume on her car radio. He retraced her final route over and over, even walking it on foot, stopping by farmhouses and roadside businesses along the way. Did you hear anything? See anyone? See something that maybe you didn't seem important, but maybe you're thinking about it now? He would ask. Most people would just turn him away. Some were kind, though. Others grew tired of his persistence. But David didn't care. "I lost my baby," he said once in an interview. "And I won't stop until I know who took her from us." Rightfully so. You go. And he kept her story alive in the press. Every year on the anniversary of her death, they hold a candlelight vigil and release balloons in honor of her memory. Local news crews know him by name, so do state investigators, and some of them even began quietly rooting for him because, in many ways, his work was surpassing their own work in the case. And he also became a voice for others, other grieving families. He wrote to senators about cold case reforms, and he pushed for better tracking of unsolved murders across the state. And still, every night, he came home to a house that no longer held Brittney's laughter anymore, and a little granddaughter who never would fully understand what she had lost. That's sad. "I don't want revenge," David once said, holding up a photo of Brittney in Autumn. "I want truth. I want peace. And I want my granddaughter to grow up knowing that her mother mattered." That's sad. The years that followed Brittney's murder was a tangle of hope, heartbreak, and headlines for the family. Each time a lead emerged, it felt like the beginning of a breakthrough, but it would most of the time fizzle out. And it would be a dagger every time to her family, dagger in the heart. It was just another reminder that justice was still way too far away. One of the most promising developments, though, came in 2016. When a man already in custody for an unrelated charge said that he was bragging to cellmates about he knew what happened to the girl in the yellow Jeep. Detectives followed up, but they interviewed him, they pressed him for details. His story kept changing. I think he was just kind of looking for maybe a deal, because when they asked for evidence, he didn't really have anything. He also failed a polygraph, so then they ruled him out as a reliable source. I can understand why. But not before weeks of renewed hope was in Brittany's family again. It's got to be super tough. Every time getting your hopes up, every tip coming in, getting your hopes up, just to have it let down again. Then came a second tip. A woman claimed that she had overheard a conversation in a local bar between two men. One allegedly said, "You'll never find the bullet, not unless you dig up the whole river." It was cryptic, eerie, and potentially explosive. Police searched the nearby stream beds after this. Divers were deployed, but no bullets, no weapons, no proof the conversation even was about Brittany's case. And still no arrests. And other leads followed. A psychic from Kentucky said Brittany's killer wore a sheriff's uniform, which is interesting because she did have her window down and there was no struggle. So that's really interesting to me. And there was an anonymous letter that claimed that her murder was tied to the drug ring. There was still that. And a tipster even said a woman resembling Brittany had been spotted alive in Michigan. So there was all kinds of crazy tips coming in. I don't know how the police sort out all this stuff and know what to go down or what roads not to go down. But that's why they are the police and I'm not. But each of these leads turned out to either be a misunderstanding or a cruel distraction. And meanwhile, Autumn began to grow older. She bore a thin scar above her right eyebrow from the bullet. She asked fewer questions about what happened, but her grandparents could still see it in her eyes. The quiet weight of something taken from her way too soon. Investigators were rotated, new faces replaced the old. Brittany's file moved from one desk to another. Occasionally, news outlets would re-air the story, re-airing interviews, and only for silence to return, unfortunately. What Brittany's family feared most was beginning to settle in, that everyone was starting to forget their daughter. Years after Brittany's murder, though, investigators circled back to the case, and one consistency in the case did stand out: the yellow Jeep. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was a crime scene, a container of clues, per se, and a symbol of the life Brittany had built. And it was still holding secrets. The Jeep had long since been released from police custody and been returned to the family months after forensic work. But as the case went cold, David Dotson could not shake the feeling that something had been missed. He asked for it back. And when he got it, he stared at it for hours, looking at every crack in the dashboard, every blood-stained thread in the seats, and every inch of the bullet holes. He even brought in a paid-for private consultant, forensic consultant, and together they re-examined the trajectory of the bullets, and what they discovered was subtle, but it was significant. The angle suggested that the shooter had been lower than Brittany's Jeep, suggesting that maybe somebody had been in the bushes, kind of, they're saying. He wasn't standing, he wasn't sitting in a car, but possibly kneeling or sitting on the side of the road. And maybe it was targeted. So that revelation rewrote the moment of attack. It meant Brittany wasn't shot by a passing car or someone she pulled up beside. She was ambushed, and someone lie in wait, possibly knowing her routine, possibly knowing the night she'd be alone with Autumn in the back seat with her guard down. Investigators took note, but by then years had passed, the trail was cold, and the Jeep, once pristine, had been touched, cleaned, and weathered by time. As for Autumn, she survived that night, but not unscarred. She endured multiple surgeries to repair her fractured skull. She developed a slight speech delay. But by age 5, she was a bright-eyed, fiercely intelligent, and carrying the memory of a mother she would never truly know. "I see Autumn in her every day," her mother, Charlene, once said. "Her smile, her stubbornness, her sweetness. Brittany lives on through that little girl." That's so true. Charlene had become something of a protector of her grandchild, and both to Autumn and to Brittany's story. She helped David charge ahead in the public, and she worked behind the scenes, documenting every lead, archiving every file, and waiting for the day until someone would really listen. Together, they refused to let the case fade. And then, in late 2019, they got the call that they had been hoping for. It was from a retired FBI profiler that had seen a short segment about Brittany's case on a crime show, one like this. And he was intrigued. Your daughter's murder, he said, is not random. It's staged. It has the signature of someone who has done this before, or is comfortable enough to think that he's not going to get caught. The profiler offered to review the case files and give his opinion. What he found sent chills down everyone's spine. But that story was just the beginning. The profiler's analysis changed everything, actually. He noted the position as Brittany's Jeep, the precise shot placement, and the lack of theft or obvious motive. And it all pointed to a killer who was organized, not impulsive. Whoever did this, he explained, has done it before or is confident that they will get away with it, and they will do it again. He also noticed someone that no one else had considered before. The pattern matched a handful of other unsolved mysteries in that area. Same M.O. Same nightmare ambush. Often on rural roads and always involving women. The FBI profiler shared his findings with the local police in Brown County, and suddenly the case was no longer just about Brittany. It was possibly part of a darker, wider pattern. Was there a serial killer? Maybe. Preying on women in Ohio's rural county? Or was Brittany's case mimicking that style, staged to look like something else? Detectives reopened similar cold cases. They interviewed families of other victims. The details were chilling. One woman was found slumped over the wheel of her car with a single gunshot wound. Another woman was found feet from her front porch in her car with the lights in her house still glowing. None of the cases have been solved. None of them had any known enemies. There was no signs of robbery, no DNA, nothing. And just like Brittany, they were all loved very dearly. All young and all taken away way too soon from their families. But in each case, there was a gap, a shadow, and a silence. Back in Ripley, David and Charlene clung to hope. They had waited years, and they could wait longer if it meant justice for their daughter. If it meant that justice would finally come. The profiler remained in touch, and he believed the killer had a connection to the area. Possibly law enforcement, which is interesting because that's what the psychic said. So maybe they should be looking on their own law enforcement team. Which is also interesting, like I said before, because the window was down. There was no struggle. So I just think that point needs to stick there. But he urged investigators not to give up. And the family did too. Because someone out there knows what happened to Brittany. And someday they will talk. Brittany Stykes was more than just a name on a case file. She was a daughter, a sister, a wife, and above all else, a mother. And she was a light in every room she entered. Her fierce loyalty to her family, her quiet faith, all these are memories that her family holds on to tightly, even now. Her daughter Autumn is living proof of that light. Though she will grow up without her mother's embrace, she carries her spirit in every smile, every stubborn question, and she has a beautiful, unbreakable bond with her grandparents. Brittany's legacy is written not only in memory, but in life, by her daughter. David and Charlene Dodson have shown the world what unwavering love and strength look like. In the face of tragedy, they stood tall. In the shadow of silence, they raised their voices. Their pursuit of justice isn't just for Brittany, it's for every family who's lost someone and never had answers. This story isn't over. Somebody out there knows something. Somebody knows who did this. Someone out there still carries the truth. And until that day comes, the day justice is served, Brittany's family, and now all of us here on this channel, will keep asking, who killed Brittany Stykes? Because that matters. Thank you for watching another episode of Twisted Tuesdays True Crime Stories. So if this story moved you, please consider sharing it, especially because we don't have a suspect behind bars in this case, and she deserves justice. And let's keep Brittany's memory alive. She was a good person, and her daughter didn't deserve this. But let's keep her memory alive, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't ever miss another episode of Twisted Tuesdays. We will always remember Brittany Stykes. May she rest in peace. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye.